Hey everybody, and welcome back to Pre-Law Talk. My name is Joshua Garlick and I'll be your host. I'm a current BYU Idaho communications student who will soon be applying to law school. I created this podcast in order to inform students about important topics such as the LSAT, the application process, law schools, and to give some advice. So last time we talked about the experience that you're going to need before applying to law schools and some smart things to do in order to gain that experience that you need. Today we're going to be talking about one of the tools that you'll be using to communicate that experience to the law schools you're interested in, a resume. So we're going to break it down into three parts. We'll first talk about the purpose of a resume, second, its components, and third, the details. Alright, so the purpose of a resume, and this is good to keep in mind while you're creating your resume, it is to just demonstrate unique experiences that you've had that will reflect your personal and professional values, so why you're valuable to a law school. Second, it'll help provide experience or evidence of your work ethic. Like I've talked about last time, it'll show that you've been working hard and for a long time so that they know you have a good work ethic and that you're going to work hard in law school. And lastly, it's an example of your organizational skills. So just like the writing sample on the LSAT, your resume is another place that you're going to reflect that you can organize information logically on a piece of paper and communicate well through that resume. So let's talk about some of the components that'll go into this resume. Alright, so some of the components, we'll talk about some good components and then some that aren't so good, but just understand that the components of your resume will vary greatly between anybody else's. So dependent upon your experiences, you want to put down the things that will most help to explain and differentiate yourself from me or anybody else. So some of the components that you might think about putting in there are your personal information, which is kind of obvious. You need to have your name and other personal information in there. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the details. You might want to include an objective statement. Personally, I find this completely unnecessary. A lot of people have them on the resumes, and I don't really understand why. Because if you're turning this into a law school, they know the objective of your resume. It's to get accepted into that law school. You don't really have to put that down on paper. Plus, you have an entire personal statement that you're going to be writing up and that they will have as well that will outline just how incredible of a person you are. So you don't really need to put an objective statement on your resume. It just takes up room. Another component that you might think about putting in there is your education. This is very useful. Things like your degree that you've earned, a major, minor. You might even want to think about putting in coursework if that is relevant. I would not necessarily put your GPA or your LSAT score on there. The law schools will already have that information, so it's not really that important that you include that, except for the case if you wanted to include the GPA of your major classes, like your GPA from your major courses. So say you didn't do too well in your general courses like science and math, but you're a poli-sci major, and so you did incredibly well in all your poli-sci classes. You got a 4.0 as far as you're concerned in your major courses, but the other ones, you might have got a couple B's, maybe a couple C's that you're not really too proud about, so you just put your GPA of your major courses on there, which might be a lot higher. And so that's something you can put it on there if you'd like. Other components that you might want to think about that most resumes have work experience, volunteer experience, skills, achievements, etc. So look at what is most valuable to defining yourself. If it's your work experience, then you want to make that section stand out. And if it's your volunteer experience, do so with that section. Don't include things that don't have a purpose just to fill space. You want everything on your resume to answer those purpose questions. So, does it demonstrate unique experience? Does it provide evidence of work ethic? And then is it a good example of your overall organizational skills, including that in your resume? Because if it's just wasting of space, then it's probably not necessary, and people might notice that. So let's move on to the details. All right. So some of the details that you want to keep on there are your name. You want to make sure that your name is big, not too big that it's just a waste of space, but you don't want it to be the same size font as the rest of your resume. You want it to stand out because you are you, and so you want them to know that. Your personal information, you want to have your phone number, your email, and if you have an online portfolio, you might want to put a link to that on there, depending on whether or not it's useful and you want them to actually look into that. One thing you don't need to include is your address. People don't really send letters to you anymore, so don't worry about that. You don't need to put your address on there. Do not use paragraphs on your resume. You want to use bullet points, and you want these bullet points to be very fine-tuned so that you have, a verb, and then you want to describe what you did and the result of what you did within each bullet point. So stray away from paragraphs. People don't like reading paragraphs. They want you to get to the point, and they want you to do it quickly. Some minor details: use size 9 to 10 font. You really want to get as much information in there as you can, but I wouldn't go much smaller than that. Use one font type unless you are a fonts guru and understand complementary fonts. Then don't use more than two, but I would stick to just one. And use a nice font like Arial. Don't use anything crazy. Another tip that I've heard a lot is do not include a photo on your resume. And I don't know why this is. I was thinking actually of putting a photo on my resume, but after that I heard from several different people, no, do not put a photo on your resume. So there you go. And before you submit your resume, once you have it all done and you have it all written out, make sure that you have it reviewed at least 3 times, once by 3 different people who obviously know something about resumes and what they should look like and what to look for. Don't just hand it to 3 of your roommates because they're easy to contact. You want to go out, if there's a resume review service on campus or something like that, get it into them, get it into a professor. If you know any lawyers, get it to them, hand it to someone that knows something about law school so that you can get the best feedback that you possibly can. Get it to someone that knows things about resume performance and building a resume so that they can critique it, and get it to somebody that knows something about grammar so that you can get it to them. You want to get it to at least 3 people before submitting it to any law schools. That's all I've got today. So leave any comments if you have them. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. And next time, we're planning on talking about letters of recommendation. So get ready for that. Special thanks to bensounds.com. Ben Sounds gives out free royalty-free music, and that's what I use. Thanks, Ben Sounds. See ya.